I've been watching some of the other presentations. You've received lots of perspectives and views on aquaculture. I thought this presentation will help demonstrate what it is, what it isn't, how it operates, where it operates, and of course, we're talking to the bill as well, so I'll get straight into it. Aquaculture New Zealand's future. So what is it? I talk about those species. Mussels, of course, it's the only indigenous protein we farm, unique to New Zealand. No one else in the world has that particular mussels. The Pacific oysters, and of course our champagne of salmon, the Chinook salmon. Nutritious, delicious, sustainable seafood. In terms of sustainability, and I got a slide or two on that, we do operate an industry sustainable management framework. We call it A+. All the farmers subscribe to it, and it helps underscore our credentials. In terms of employment, it's 3,000 jobs currently. In terms of revenue, our total revenues are circa 780 million. But we have this massive potential, and in many ways that's why we're here today, to talk about that and how we progress that. Where does it occur? From Tito Tokoro right down to Rakiura, and so it's with Northland, Auckland, Coromandel. I say Auckland, there's a lot of oyster farms there. Coromandel, Eastern Bay of Plenty, of course, Tito Ihu, Canterbury, including the hydro canals, and as mentioned in Southland as well. It's the lifeblood of many regional towns. You think of Whangaroa in the far north, Coromandel, Portakey, Havelock, Tākaka, Twizel, Bluff, and the people that we employ there, they're often, the cornerstone of the local communities, whether it's in the voluntary fire brigade, the schools involved in KiwiCan and other community events, including environmental initiatives like beach cleanups and restorative agriculture. And just the last point, most New Zealanders, we did a survey at a time when salmon farming was a bit contentious in Marlborough, and we did a survey at the heat of that, and even then 91% of the respondents said they'd like to see aquaculture growing in New Zealand. 3% disagreed. The small difference didn't express a view. Aquaculture strategy. So I've been in the game almost 2 decades, and in that time we've had successive governments of different flavours, all keenly supporting aquaculture or expressing that view. So much so that in 2019, the government of the day released the aquaculture strategy, and in that document it stated that you could easily achieve 3 billion in revenue if you did a range of different things, and in fact 3 billion in many eyes possibly be conservative. So we're currently 783 billion by 2035. At the time of the pandemic, MPI released this document, Fit for a Better World, and that's obviously thing was accelerating our economic potential, and they specifically picked up on aquaculture, accelerate the aquaculture strategy. It offers huge potential for sustainable growth, and early action would deliver this growth sooner. I won't read it all, but I will say, in addition to that, MPI commissioned various reports, and one of the reports said one of the first things you should be looking at is the regulatory framework. If we could address the regulatory framework, that seems to be the biggest barrier for constraining growth in the aquaculture sector. In terms of our sustainability credentials, it is one of the most sustainable forms of protein production on the planet. What we do in New Zealand here is globally recognised. We've had engagements with WWF internationally, the Nature Conservancy, Food Health Planet, and a key one for us was actually in the US market, Monterey Bay Aquarium. They have the Seafood Watch, and it is the definitive North American guide for sustainable seafood. And the effect that having that rating, and for the things that we grow, we have their highest rating, their best choice for our salmon, for our mussels, and for our oysters. And the salmon, we're the only country in the world that has that rating, and that's what happened when we got the rating back in 2013. That's the difference it made, and we were getting feedback at the time said, well, unless you have a green rating, we don't want to know about you. That is the difference that rating makes, and in the US, we are seen as the champagne of salmon. In terms of ecological benefits, I can't think of an industry, certainly not in the marine environment, that has been as researched and studied as long and as lengthy as aquaculture. And there is broad acknowledgement now that actually aquaculture, particularly shellfish, has ecological benefits. The effects are well known and well studied and reversible. And you think of this picture here, a diagram of mussel farms. The ecology in and around mussel farms is typically more enriched than in the surrounding areas. So, well, I've got another slide on, I'll come to it then. So in terms of carbon footprint, again, in terms of animal proteins, well, nothing beats mussels. It's lower than tofu, tastes a yards better. But oysters and salmon also come up. Pleasingly, through this study, credible agency called ANZ ThinkStep, our other producers of protein in New Zealand on a global scale are always at the sharpest end. So I think New Zealand does well on that basis. Oh, this is the slide I was going to come to talk about, and this was a matter, I know it's came up in some of the other earlier presentations about concerns about privatisation of water space. And of course, if you want to catch snapper, the mussel farms are where you go. So there's not an excluded area. On any given weekend or any good day out, there are literally hundreds of boats out in the mussel farms in the Perth Thames catching snapper. We like that because the snapper also munching whale and mussel. So if the more people can catch the snapper, that's everyone's winning there. But if you've driven that road, and particularly on a long weekend, there's often a traffic jam because of the trailer boats who are looking to launch. And that's the case with most marine farms, particularly mussel farms, which most marine farms are mussel farms. We're actually providing increased amenity value. Certainly not, exclusive space. Māori in aquaculture, already significant players. Some of the largest oyster companies Māori owned, Ngāi Tahu, speaking later on today, they have significant involvement in aquaculture through their shareholding in Sanford. Another group, I think Moana is speaking later on, of course, the largest oyster farmer. And in fact, with it again from the top of the North Island right down to the south, there is iwi involvement, and another high-profile activity occurs in Eastern Bay of Plenty, where Whakatūia are developing mussel farms there, and that's a real circuit breaker for the town and for the region in a very positive way. I can't speak for iwi, but I know they have big ambitions, and I also know they're frustrated by some of the plan settings and the processes around reconsent. Biosecurity in the marine environment. I think the aquaculture industry is an absolute standout for leading one marine biosecurity. We have established standards based on world's best practice. We have farm management plans, and we're requiring each farm. In fact, we're working closely with Biosecurity New Zealand around the requirement for all farms to have a biosecurity farm management plan. Why do we support this bill? The basic reasons are the components of the current consenting system are flawed, and we'll invite questions on that. Processes can be onerous and expensive. Costs for reconsenting the remaining 300 farms are estimated to be $28 million. The sector is burdened by additional multi-million-dollar costs traversing the regional planning cycles, and that's to preserve existing sites. The future of many farms is subjectively designated inappropriate is uncertain. In some cases, these locations have unique characteristics. So it might be a key spat catching site or a nursery site, because you don't just plonk your mussels onto a farm and then, like I guess in the horticultural sense, they just grow until you pick them. Mussels will have different stages, and the different conditions in those locations will which will be better suited for different stages of the growth. So not all water space is the same. So when I hear people saying, oh, you have to move your farm and relocate it there, well, if it's a key spat catching site or nursery site, there might be 100 other farms reliant on the productivity of those sites, those unique characteristics. So moving from one site to another is not always provide the equivalent solution. I'd also say, look, I mentioned I've been in the industry for almost 2 decades. I'd sort of have questioned my confidence in the regulatory process and the pace of that. These issues have been around a while and we're still struggling with them. So just to say that, let's try and work it through in the next 5 years. Well, if we haven't done it in the previous 10 or 20, what confidence does the sector have that it'll be solved in the next 5? The 20-year extension gives the sector confidence to invest in its productivity, resilience and future value. The bill importantly allows for consent conditions to be reviewed and where necessary updated. But I'd also inform the committee that there's only a very small number of farms that wouldn't have current consent conditions. Liberate resources to focus on those more productive pursuits. What would they be? It's hatcheries for things like spat, and if we look to expand other parts of the industry, hatcheries will play a larger role, an important role. Vessels and equipment, again, for efficiencies and energy, improve energy efficiency as well. Land-based infrastructure, it's not just on the water, there's people and skills, there's new farming opportunities, there's species of seaweeds and things, there's farming methods, there's possibly other locations. We also need to adapt to changing conditions, whether it's the oscillation, El Nino oscillation, or indeed, are we seeing broader trends in terms of changing conditions. R&D and of course, the pursuit of high value products and markets. Here's an example of a Kiwi innovation, aquaculture innovation, making a splash around the world. The pictures on the left are traditional stick farming techniques for oysters. The pictures on the right, this new system called Flip Farm, developed by Aaron Pinnell down in Marlborough. Less labour, higher productivity, lower environmental footprint. So that's an excellent example. And now this is not only to win an international award, being the global winner for innovation in 2021, there's significant international interest in that system. I don't expect landowners and their consenting processes to be put through the same ringer that marine farmers do, and the nature of the activity around it.
So you say that the aquaculture industry is put through the ringer more than land?
I think aquaculture has a unique set of challenges that you don't see in land-based resource consents.
Can you just unpack that? Sorry, I genuinely really want to understand what you're saying.
Well, maybe defer to...
I can have a go. So aquaculture, every aspect of aquaculture needs a consent. So land-based farmers, they can farm as of right as permitted activities, but there's no permitted activity for aquaculture. In fact, there's a section which prohibits permitted activities for aquaculture. So everything needs a consent. Because of that, everything that the industry has done over the last 20, 30 years has been picked over consent by consent by consent by consent by consent. We're spending $100,000, easily spending $100,000 on contentious consents every time. The sort of issues that come up at this committee that you've heard from submitters yesterday, and you'll hear this afternoon and tomorrow, they're exactly the same things that we get consent by consent by consent. And every time you've got to call experts, you've got to convince the decision maker that actually what you're doing is a legitimate business, doesn't have an environmental effect. You go through all of that work, and it's simply inefficient.